Hey, free biochar. Should get some of this. So there's been a theme running through the conference, a couple topics, things like imagination, and like storytelling, and like communication and working together. And this is going to be a story. But before I start, I want you to imagine something. Imagine Google Earth, imagine an atlas, but of the human body that scales so you can zoom in all the way from your limbs into your organs, down into your cells, where you can see molecules in motion throughout your entire body. And this is a story about a conversation that I'm helping to lead to make this happen. And my story begins with a dream. Good. When I was about 4, I started having fevers. And every night that I went to bed with a fever, I would have the same dream. And in this dream, this presence would appear before me. And it was very familiar and very much alive. And there's a conversation taking place. And we're working together. And at the same time, I have my own unique and specific role to play to help this thing grow and to stay balanced. And at first, I didn't really understand what that was or how I was doing it. But as the dream continues, this presence grows, and the conversation becomes very fast. So fast that it appears to stop. And so you can imagine the conversation becomes so fast, and the dream escalates, and at some point I feel like I'm losing control. And then in the dream, the presence swells up before me like an enormous wave, and it comes crashing down upon me, and I wake up screaming. And the same dream happened night after night, and it went on for years. And then one night, in the dream, I had this realization, and I woke up. In the dream, I became lucid, and in this state, I decided I wouldn't be afraid. And as the waves swelled up for this time, I just stepped into it, and I felt this incredible sense of peace, and I drowned. And I woke up laughing. Right, those are the best dreams. And I learned something from this dream, that with living systems, like this one, this was the first chance I had to witness the beauty of a living system. It was the first chance I had to see before me the incredible complexity of a living organism, that intricacy. And what I learned was that with these living systems, you can help them grow and stay balanced, yours and others, but you can't control them, and in fact, you don't need to. You can just let them go, and you can flow with them and have that conversation. Okay. So, many years later, this idea stuck with me, and I went to Oberlin, and I was playing trombone in the conservatory. And there's a few things that I really love about music, and one of them is rhythm. And the other one is playing in the orchestra. And it's this incredible experience because you get lost in this enormous sound, you get enveloped, and at the same time, you have your own specific, unique role to play, and you're having a conversation together, and you're working together. And as an audience member, you all have a role to play too in the orchestra because you're part of that conversation. And you can zoom in to the orchestra and you can just find that one fabric of a melody. And then you can zoom all the way out and see how that one thread fits into the entire fabric of sound that you're having a conversation with. And this to me was very beautiful, but the trombone really wasn't my thing, and so I let it slide. And so I added a degree, because at Oberlin you can do this. This is actually something Bob Fuller, who we heard earlier, helped start. And I was working on 2 degrees, and the second one at this point was in the natural sciences and biology. And I started becoming immersed in the concepts of living systems and in living organisms. And it was really incredible. It's kind of like studying the Kabbalah or some esoteric text. That's what science is like. That's what it feels like. They're these dense and abstract concepts, and at first they make almost no sense, and they're in Latin or they're in Greek, right? You have to translate them literally. And then all of a sudden, one of these concepts will come down and it will unravel itself for you. And then you have this insight and this vision, and the whole thing makes sense. And on rare occasion, one of these concepts might be presented in a visual format, like printed on a page. But that's very rare, and I think, frankly, we need much more of that. But I'll share with you one insight that I had while I was learning about the body, and that's that our bodies have about maybe 10 trillion cells. And the exact number isn't that important, but the real insight came when I learned that of all the cells in your body, about 10% of them are actually human. 10%. And the other 90% of the cells in your body are other species. Okay? Thousands and thousands of other species living with you in this body, right? And it sounds kind of creepy. And that's what I thought too. But it turns out that most of the species that are living with you in this body are having a conversation, right? You're working together in symbiosis. And in fact, you can't stay alive without them. And I realized at that point that we're not lonely, solitary species in these bodies. We're actually part of a vast living ecosystem, all working together, all having a conversation. And in that sense, we're both a player and the entire orchestra, and our bodies become this symphony. And so, after that, I came here to Berkeley, and here we are at Sellerbach. And I started studying the human brain, because to me, this was something that was totally amazing. And in the brain, one of these new concepts, another concept unfolded itself, and it's called oscillatory synchrony. And so to unpack it, oscillations are rhythms, and synchrony means together. And so oscillatory synchrony means in rhythm together. And your brain, with its maybe 100 billion neurons, communicates in oscillatory synchrony, right? Your brain right now is communicating in rhythm together, like an orchestra. And so, to me, this is really amazing. And that these rhythms that take place in your brain, it's like every shade of consciousness you have, and unconsciousness, and every touch, and every sensation, and every feeling, and every thought, and every emotion, and every memory that you're having right now and that you've ever had is like an enormous conversation. It's like a symphony that's happening all the time. And when I realized this, for the first time I had this incredible vision, and it was so familiar, and I recognized what it was. This was that dream that I had as a kid. And I realized all of a sudden that this dream that I had was all about this conversation, all about the conversation happening in living systems. And I thought, this is so beautiful, and I really wanted to share it. And so I started trying to draw it, and that was a complete failure, because it's very hard to draw. And so I started trying to explain it to people. I didn't have the words. And so I tried to find images online, and I couldn't find anything that could describe it. And so after about 3 years into the PhD program here, I found my calling, and it was just to create this. And I've been calling it, for simplicity, the Human Atlas Project. And the mission of this project is to celebrate the beauty of living systems, starting with our own. And it's to create an atlas of the body that scales all the way from organs down to atoms, and that can show in a fully 3D and interactive environment kind of the immersive properties of your body, so you can go all the way from the outside in. And it shows the dynamic processes from moving molecules in motion, right? So it becomes a living atlas, so you can see your body actually alive and changing, like the symphony. And so I ask, if you could look inside of an atlas, if it existed today, if you could peer inside yourself, what would you want to see? So imagine flying through and watching your bloodstream, and the blood pass through the 60,000 miles of your circulatory system that it passes through every day. Or watching biological rhythms take place in your body, right? Rhythms that happen in fractions of a second, all the way down to rhythms that happen over the course of minutes or weeks or months or seasons, right? We're always in rhythm. Or imagine meeting all of the thousands of other species that live with you and just saying hello. Species that are so symbiotically intertwined with us that, in fact, their mere presence influences our cognition and the way we experience the world. This is happening right now in your bodies. Imagine watching healing take place in the body, like healing from a cut or from a stroke or healing from cancer. And imagine watching brain plasticity taking place. So the 100 trillion connections in your brain right now are all changing shape in minutes, even seconds. They're changing shape to my voice, and they're changing shape to the thought that you just had after that. So your brain is constantly adapting to its environment. And I think this is a vision whose time has come, and I think that we're ready for it. And if you look at how far we've come just in the past few hundred years, I think it's completely incredible. So 200 years ago, we had drawings of the first cells of animals because we learned 200 years ago that animals, including humans, had cells. Think of that, 200 years ago. Only about 120 years ago, we saw drawings of neurons. This is one by Ramonica Hall. This is a hand drawing, so we get to see inside of our own brains. And about 60 plus years ago, we saw a double helix for the first time, and the whole concept of DNA literally unraveled for us. Within the last few decades, we've seen images like this, our brain able to witness itself while we're still alive, right? You can see in fine resolution inside of our own heads. And the internet's been blooming, and everything's been happening. And if you think about all these different things that are coming together, right, all the pieces are there, and I think all that has to happen is for the conversation to take place. And so just to show you a few of what these pieces are, there's atlases of the body in the world today, online, that you can use for free, that actually are fully interactive, but they just don't scale from organs to atoms. And they don't show a living body, right? There's no molecules in motion, no cells. There's beautiful medical animations. So we partnered with a group called Ex Vivo, and they make these incredible animations, like looking inside of a cell, and they tell a story. And these are scientifically valid, right? These are taken from real shapes. And the only thing is you can't ask them a question, right? You can't interact with these movies. There's mountains and mountains of scientific information that I have to comb through every day, like the Kabbalah, to translate all these dense and abstract concepts into things that are fully accessible and intuitive. And this isn't something that just scientists can do. So here, this paper in particular, this is a group of 25 students between the ages of 8 and 10. And they had the supervision of Bulato, who was a vision researcher in the UK. But these 25 kids got together, and they designed a study. And they carried out the study, and they analyzed their data, and they hand drew it. And they wrote the manuscript. And they said things like, science is cool and fun. And in most manuscripts, we don't get to hear that, right? We just go straight to the dense stuff. We don't actually realize that this is, real discovery. And Dr. Robert Knight, who's the head of the Helen Wills Neuroscience Institute here at Berkeley, has begun an initiative with the journal Frontiers in Neuroscience. And the goal there is to create a peer review process for kids. So people who submit their articles can write summaries, 1 to 2 page summaries, for 10 to 18-year-olds. And those 10 to 18-year-olds are the reviewers. And if they don't understand what you're saying, they'll deny your manuscript, right? Thank you. Because if you can't explain something to a 5th grader in a way they understand, frankly, I don't think you know what you're talking about, myself included. There's another group that we have been partnering with called the Open Source Science Project. And this allows microfinancing options for research. So as an undergrad, if you have a brilliant idea, and most do, you don't need to apply for an enormous grant or get all this faculty sponsorship. You can just put the idea out there and try to get it funded. Okay, and there's communities. I joined this one recently. It's called Gameful. This is a gaming community, and gamers are so good at working together. It's incredible. And games have come out like Remission, that show fighting cancer in the body, or games like Foldit, that use the power of crowdsourcing to find novel shapes for proteins. And I think what's so amazing about all of this is communities are forming on the planet, where people can come together through this collective nervous system, the internet, and do projects like Wikipedia, where almost 11 million people can work together from all over the world, right? And we can all use this, and it's free. And if you imagine one individual, it seems like sometimes that we feel kind of powerless to do anything. But if we all come together, we can do amazing things. And if you look at the body, any one individual cell seems like nothing, right? Like here, I just lost a few. But if millions of cells come together, suddenly you have a body, and it's this incredible thing. And I think if we come together, we can form something like an atlas, or pretty much anything we can imagine. And so I think where we're headed, and I don't just think this, I mean, we can all see it today, and it's been throughout the conference, is towards what I call a massively multi-collaborative culture, right? Millions and millions of us coming together to do anything we want. And our society needs this, and as social living systems, we actually need to come together. And disconnecting a living system from itself or from its environment is suffering, right? Disconnection is suffering. And I think the Atlas can actually help us reconnect with ourselves by letting us peer inside of ourselves and see what we truly are. And I think it can help us reconnect with each other as communities. Because when you look inside the body, you don't see just yourself, right? You, as a body, are thousands of species working together. And if you as a body can work together with thousands of other species every day, we should be able to work together with each other just as one species, right? It shouldn't be that hard. And so I also think that this project can help us get in touch with the environment. And the Human Atlas project, I see it as just a proof of concept. And after that come atlases of all living species. So that way, you can zoom into this incredible environment and see inside of all species, anything living on the earth. And you can learn all these insights and all this wisdom, but then you don't stay in the computer, right? At some point, you have to leave, and you go outside into the real world. And you see the birds and the grass and other people, and you see that dandelion pushing itself up through a crack in the sidewalk, things that we take for granted every day. But you see them with new eyes, because you've learned that inside are these living systems, and they're having a conversation, and they're working together, and yet each one has its own individual and very important role to play. And so with that, I leave you with this final thought. Imagine that you are watching a documentary about the planet, and you're seeing these beautiful landscapes all over the earth, and they're so amazing, you feel this incredible impulse to just quit everything you're doing and leave everything you know and just go there, just for a day. There are landscapes like this inside your body, everywhere. They're so beautiful, you'd feel just the impulse to quit everything you're doing and go there just for a day. But you don't need to, right? Because they're already here, right? You are those landscapes, they're inside you. And so you are these beautiful landscapes, and you are this living ecosystem, all working together, having a conversation, having a community. You are both a player and the entire orchestra, and your body is this beautiful symphony. You are beautiful. Thank you.